Hi folks, it's Tracy again at Ornamentia. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make this cute spider web for Halloween. It's coming up very soon. So let's get started. I'll talk about what we need to do the project. We don't have too many supplies for this project. You're just going to need 2 pairs of pliers, our cutters, and our chain nose pliers. I'm also going to be using 28 gauge wire. I chose to use a silver tone because our little form is silver as well. So this is a little snowflake form. We are going to magically change it into a spider web form. We also need clear seed beads. We've got 2 different sizes. We've got 11-ohs and 8-ohs, so a smaller one and a larger. And for our spider, you're going to need 2 black beads. I did a bigger and a smaller. I just kind of went through my beads and found these are nice and shiny and black and said spider to me. You also need a 3-inch head pin and 11-oh black seed beads for the legs. And I think that's everything we need, so let's start the web. So for the web, I've got my 2 clear seed beads already laid out for myself, and I've cut myself about a 24-inch piece of the 28 gauge wire. You don't want to work with more than that at a time just because it's going to get a little unruly and hard to manage. I've also got my frame and my cutters. So we're going to start by loading 4 or 5 of the 8-oh seed beads onto one of the spokes. I say 4 or 5 because if you kind of keep it irregular, it's going to look more like a real spider web instead of being so symmetrical. So I've got 4 on there, and I'm going to take my wire and hold the first couple of inches down with my thumb against the frame, and we're just going to bind a few times around the top of the beads on the first spoke. That's going to keep those beads in place and get our wire started. And then take your cutters and you can go ahead and nip the little tail off where we were holding it. So we're going to go ahead and load beads on the next spoke. So I'm going to pick up a few of those. And it helps to just pick it up with the frame. And now we're going to cross over with the little beads. So use the wire to pick them up because they're itty bitty. And you want just enough seed beads to cross the gap between the 2 spokes. So I'm going to try 7 and see how that works. And just load some and then let them fall down. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to take 1 off. That was 1 too many. So once you've got enough to cross the gap, you're going to bind above the next set of 8-oh beads and start doing your webbing. Just like that. So you're going to work around in a spiral pattern. And now, by the magic of video, I've finished almost my first full round. So I want to talk a little bit about how you continue after we've done that. So I've gotten to the point where I've got my webbing on and I'm ready to go to the next spoke. So I'm going to do just like I did before. I'm going to go ahead and load 8-oh seed beads on the next one we're going to wrap. And now that we're away from the center, you can do less of the 8-ohs. You only want to do 2 or 3 or even 1 from now on. So your webbing will be nice and close together. And I need a few more, it looks like, of the 11-ohs. So I'm going to load a few more of those on. You're going to find the farther you get, the longer each section takes because you have to keep loading more and more 11-ohs on because it's getting farther and farther apart. But then you're just going to wrap above those, and we've kicked out and started our spiral. So we're just going to keep going around and around until we get to about 1/4 of an inch of the wire left. Now since I've only had you working with 24 inches of wire at a time, that means we're going to run out before we get to the end. So I wanted to show you how to change out the wire. I've got my last wrap all set, my little beads are all strung, and my 8-ohs are on the spoke. So I'm going to take the last bit of wire I have and just wrap it a few times so it feels secure. Take my next 24-inch piece of wire and really just the same way I did at the beginning, I'm going to use my thumb to hold it and wrap it a few times So there's going to be this one spot that has a little more wire wrapped around, but it's really not going to be noticeable. It hides nicely between your beads, and you can go ahead and trim your little tails off, and you're all set to continue. So remember, we're going to work around until we have about 1/4 of an inch left. Okay, so I'm on my very last round. I've already loaded up my webbing beads, and I'm just going to take my wire and bind it off. And on this last one, you can do a few more turns if you want, just so it's a little more secure. And go ahead and trim the little tail off. And see, I've left about 1/4 of an inch on each one. They're probably not going to come out exact. You're going to have some that are a little longer than others, and that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and start taking my chain nose pliers, and what we're going to do is turn the little ends on themselves so they're not so sharp. And you really want to support the tine with your thumb while you're doing this so you don't snap the whole thing. You're going to grab it and start to turn it. These tines are steel, so they're tough. And once you get a little bit of a curve in it, you can squish it together, just kind of bend it on itself. And that's going to blunt your end and and kind of make a stop for your beads, keep your beads from falling off. Now, before we do all of them, there are 2 that we need to do differently. We want to do a top one and a side one. So the top one's going to be to hang our web from the top, and then the side one's going to be where we're going to hang our little spider. So for these 2, we need to have more of an open loop. We don't want to just turn it on itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do those first before I finish the others. And it works the same way. You just want to curve it out a little bit more, and then grab the edge of the wire and turn it in so it leaves it a little more open inside. You don't want to just squish these together. We need to have a little bit of space to slip our hanger through. And you want them to be 1 spoke apart, just so we can have the spider hanging off one side. And you go ahead and curve that one too. And you can tell I'm really having to use a decent amount of force on this. The support's really important so you don't snap the center of your frame. So now that I have my 2 looped ones, all the rest I can just turn on themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that, and then we can move on to doing our spider. Okay, we've got our web all done. Yay! So we're ready to do our little spider. So I've got my 2 larger black beads and my 3-inch head pin. And I've also got some of my 11-0 seed beads, the clear ones, and some 11-0 black ones for the legs. So we're going to start out by putting the larger bead on the head pin and then the smaller. And then what we're going to do is we're going to load up the head pin with the clear bead, so it's going to look like a little thread of web hanging down from the spider web. And you'll notice I'm using the head pin itself to pick them up. This is going to be a lot easier, like I said, than trying to pick them up and put them on with your fingers. Your fingers are so much bigger than they are. But you're just going to load the whole thing up. We want to have about 1/2 inch of head pin sticking out when we're done, because it's going to take about 1/4 of an inch to make our loop, but we want to leave a little bit of gap as well, because we have to bind our spider legs between our black beads. And if there's no room, then we're kind of out of luck. So this is just going to take a little while to keep loading them on. You guys have already gotten a lot of practice with this by now, because you did all those little webs on the spider web. It also helps if you spread them out. You can get to them more easily. Oh, so close. Actually, I think I need to take a few off. So like I said, about a 1/2 inch at the top, right there. So you can do this part with chain nose or round nose pliers, but I'm just going to bend a 1/4 inch over and grab the edge and kind of curl it back on itself. We just want to have an open loop. And in this instance, it doesn't need to be perfectly round, so if you don't have round nose pliers, you can get away with using your chain nose. And it's going to hang from the little side loop we made earlier. Now there should be a little bit of play in there. See how they move around? That's good, because we need to have that gap in there, like I said, between the two beads, because we're going to put our legs there. Now we're going to use some 28 gauge wire to do the legs. We're going to do pairs of legs at a time. So I'm going to start by just taking the end of the wire and turning it on itself like we did with the ends of our web spokes. And we'll just work off of a 24-inch piece like we were doing before. We just take the very end and turn it on itself and squish it together. This is just going to act as our stopper. They're like little spider feet. And you do want to be consistent when you put seed beads on for the legs. So each pair just needs to be the same. So if you decide, however many you decide to do for the first half of your pair of legs, you should do that same number for the other half, so you don't have a lopsided spider. I think I'm going to start with about 11 for each leg for the top legs, and as you go down towards the bottom legs, you need to do a few more. So let's count out 11 here. And just slide them all the way down. You can see it's stopping at the end. So I'm going to hold the beaded part of the 28 gauge right next to the gap and wrap a few times between my two black beads. And to do the other side, I'm going to go ahead and put 11 beads on this side. Right. Just let them fall. And to make the second foot, I'm going to go ahead and trim and leave just a little bit sticking off, just enough to turn and make a stopper. So you're going to do each pair of legs that way. See, I can go ahead and shape the top ones if I want. But you're going to do 3 more sets of legs, because a good spider should have 8 legs. So go ahead and do that, and we'll show you how to put them on. So I repeated the process and made 3 more sets of legs and just bound them between the 2 black beads. But unfortunately, our spider's looking a little goofy right now. I already styled his front legs, so we're going to give him a little more pizzazz and style the rest of his legs so he looks more like a real spider. I'm just kind of bending them till they touch, because then he's going to look like a real spider. They use their back legs to kind of push along the silk, just like that. So if we take the rest of them and gently bend them down, it's going to look more like a real spider. It's got a little more spunk that way. Now we're ready to just hang it off the web. So I'm going to take my chain nose and grab the edge of the loop I made and just kind of kick it sideways. And hook it through one of the loops I made on the web. And bring it back together. So it's going to hang. Then the last touch, I just grabbed a cute little white ribbon that I had lying around. You could use a Christmas ornament hook or whatever you want, really, to go through the top one. You just need to make yourself something to hang your web from. And there you have it. A really cool little Halloween ornament.